Hello there, and welcome to Geek Speak. My name is Nath, and this week I have been playing some of the brilliant Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, a game with an incredible plot that explores, as the name suggests, rebirth, life and death, us, and our limited time that we have with the beautiful planet that we live on. Death and dying can be a tricky and difficult subject, but it can be also a matter of great beauty and purpose. I like it when a film, book, series or game treats death with significance and care, as it can be both a powerful and effective storytelling tool. Rather than it being for shock factor like in, say, Game of Thrones, there are times when the passing away of a character in gaming has had a profound effect on me as a player. So, with a massive spoiler ahead warning, here are 7 video game deaths that hit us right in the feels. We begin this list with quite possibly the most infamous death in all of gaming. Gamers in 1997 were left shocked, heartbroken and speechless when at the end of the second disc of the 3 discs Final Fantasy VII was first released on, that their magical healer and the last of the ancient Cetra, Aerith, is unceremoniously shish kebabbed by the platinum haired pain in the proverbial Sephiroth. For most of us, Final Fantasy VII was our first experience of video games telling such a deep and impactful story with a fleshed out world and characters that you really cared about. And so the absolute shock of seeing an active party member Masamune to death at the end of Act 2 was unthinkable. This has in recent years become doubly shocking, as the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth games have spent quite a lot of time exploring and hinting at the possibility of this outcome becoming an avoidable fact. It sets us up as players with the notion of alternate realities where Aerith and Zack both survive, and even goes so far as to tease Aerith's survival right up to the moment where she dies. There is still of course a chance that in the remake Part 3, this death might well be undone, but until that game releases in what is rumoured to be 2028, we can only speculate and hope that we have not seen the last of everyone's favourite flower girl. Moving from one excellent trilogy to another now, the Mass Effect series has no shortage of shocking potential deaths. Almost every main party member, from Garrus to Grunt and Tali to Thane, can meet a tragic and sudden end. The one for me that left me with a massive lump in my throat was the heroic sacrifice made by Dr. Mordin Solus as he bravely rides an elevator towards certain death in order to undo the genetic sterilisation of an entire species he once helped cause. For Mordin, it's more the journey that is impactful here, rather than just the destination, as we see him go from being a cold, clinical pragmatist with a shoot first and ask questions never approach in Mass Effect 2, and transform into a compassionate comrade with a conscience in the third game, where he makes the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of the galaxy and for the sake of his friends. Mordin's story is one of redemption, and that is a theme that we shall revisit a little bit later on in this list. Entry number 3 is a slightly sneaky one, as the character in question doesn't stay dead. At the time it was released, Sonic Adventure 2 was considered by most at Sega to be the swan song for the Blue Blur. It was released at the end of the Dreamcast's life cycle, and no one knew when or where the next game would be coming. So when edgy anti-hero Shadow the Hedgehog plummets to Earth at the climax of this epic platformer, it was expected that this was him going out for good. Now, in reality he was back in the next game, and a few more after that too. But the way his story in Adventure 2 was written, it was a satisfying death that brought his story to full circle. Shadow spends most of Sonic Adventure 2 with a vendetta against the human race, due to them killing the only family he ever had, Gerald and Maria Robotnik. It is only once we reach the final act of this story, when Shadow is reminded of the promise he made to Maria to protect the world that she loved, that Shadow's quest for revenge is halted, and in an epic space battle with the Bio-Lizard, Shadow chooses to sacrifice himself to save the world. This was the first time a Sonic game had killed off a major character, and it marked the beginning of a much more mature era in the series. It is rare for a game to kill off its main character, but that is exactly what happens in the grisly first season of Telltale's The Walking Dead. You play through the game as Lee Everett, a man who at the beginning of the game is on his way to prison for accidentally killing the man who stole his wife. This former history teacher turned convict has his life turned upside down when at the outbreak of the global zombie apocalypse he stumbles onto Clementine, a small girl whose parents have gone missing. Lee decides to protect and look after Clem in what is a harrowing and gritty dystopia as the two of them try to survive a world gone mad. It is in the fifth and final episode of the game that Lee finds himself bitten by one of the infected, and despite rescuing Clem from a maniac and escaping a city full of walkers, Lee slowly begins to turn and leaves young Clementine with a terrible final choice to close out an already highly tense and emotional game. Shoot Lee or leave Lee to turn? This is a sobering and heartbreaking moment, as through their journey, Lee and Clem create a father-daughter bond. Lee invests in Clem, teaching her how to survive in a world that she does not deserve to be stuck with. Their relationship is a spot of beauty in an otherwise ugly and dark situation. Alas, the building sense of dread and finality creep their way in such a way that the final scenes of this masterclass of storytelling are truly impactful, memorable, and always leave me misty-eyed. Entry number 5 is an interesting one, as it is both the premise for the game and only one of its potential outcomes. Life is Strange begins with Max Caulfield, a budding photographer and senior in high school, discovering that she has the ability to rewind time. She discovers this by accidentally witnessing and then reversing the murder of her long-lost childhood friend, Chloe Price. What then follows is a week-long coming-of-age story based around the friendship of Chloe and Max, who stumble onto a deadly mystery. The game explores what could happen if you mess with time, and it follows the butterfly effect approach right up to the climax of the game, which presents Max with two unthinkable choices. A. Allow a storm to destroy the hometown of Arcadia Bay, killing dozens of people, or B. Going back to the start of the week and allowing Chloe to be shot dead. It is a painful choice either way, because throughout the game you reconnect and bond deeply with Chloe as you explore themes of identity, childhood trauma, romance, growing up, and of course, life and death. Regardless of which way you look at it, Chloe's death is the premise that the rest of the game is built around, and it's why, for me, this is one of the most important deaths in all of gaming. Our penultimate entry brings us back to the subject of redemption, specifically Red Dead Redemption 2, which follows Arthur Morgan, a member of the notorious Van der Linde gang. For the first half of this ride through the Wild West, you get to live out the outlaw's lifestyle to the fullest, complete with campfires, bank robberies, dodgy saloons, and of course the odd bit of riding your horse against a painfully beautiful sunset. You get to know the gang members and begin to suspect that there is trouble in this cowpoke paradise. Arthur begins to question the ethics, methods, and leadership of this group, and he is wrestling with his own identity. It's at this point that the game decides to drop an absolute bomb on you. Arthur has tuberculosis, the fatal kind. What immediately follows this is a somber ride across the map to the powerful track Unshaken by D'Angelo. And as Arthur and you, the player, come to terms with the inevitable, our poncho-wearing protagonist resolves to make the most of his remaining time and to make right the years he has spent following the wrong cause. The game slowly builds up the impending sense of doom and finality as you tie up loose ends and saddle up one last time to confront your former gangmates in an epic shootout that results in Arthur making a heroic last stand before going down, as Bon Jovi once sang, in a blaze of glory. an epic and satisfying conclusion to one of the best open world RPGs out there. I have saved until last the only entry on this list that managed to reduce me to tears. It also happens to be my pick for the best game of the PS4 console generation. Most of us know the origin story of Marvel's Spider-Man, but in case you don't, the abridged version is nerdy teenager Peter Parker develops spider powers after a radioactive arachnid bites him on a school field trip. He immediately uses his power for selfish reasons, and as a byproduct of this, he fails to save the life of his beloved Uncle Ben, learning that, say it with me now, with great power there must also come great responsibility. This game starts with a mid-20s Peter Parker who has been at the wall-crawling profession for about 8 years, and is, while a competent superhero, still not so competent with managing his secret identity, home life, work life, and romance. The one constant in his life is his beloved Aunt May, who is the deputy manager of a homeless charity called Feast. May in this iteration of the character is portrayed as a mid-60s lady with a passion for helping those in need, including her web-slinging nephew, who time and time again she acts as an emotional rock for, providing sage advice and practical support. Towards the climax of this game, a deadly virus called Devil's Breath is released into New York City, and Peter is forced to fight his once beloved mentor, Dr. Otto Octavius, aka Doc Ock, in order to claim the only vial of cure. While this is all going on, May has contracted the virus in the line of duty at Feast and is now bedridden and at death's door. When Spider-Man arrives at Feast with the antidote, he is faced with an impossible choice: save the woman who raised him, or give the antidote to a doctor so that it can be mass-produced, saving thousands of New Yorkers. It is at this point that May wakes up in a hospital bed and tells Spider-Man she wants to see the face of her nephew, revealing to a teary-eyed Peter that she has known his secret for quite some time, and that she and Ben are very proud of him. Peter tells her that he doesn't know what to do, and with her final breath, Aunt May reassures him that he does know the right thing to do. In a lot of ways, this is a mirror to the way Peter loses Uncle Ben 8 years prior, as he is now faced with a choice where the consequences are crystal clear. He must choose between being selfish or sacrificial, and with Aunt May acting as his compass, he of course chooses the latter and selflessly lives up to the great power, great responsibility mantra. It is a beautiful, heroic moment, and is the perfect example of a death in a video game being written perfectly. There we are, guys. 7 deaths in video games that hit us right in the feels. Are there any that you think that I missed? Why not comment them down below? If you enjoy these videos, please do drop a like, a share, and a subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be alerted for when I go live with another video. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe. See you, bye.